Hey everyone, Vivek here again from the Wordware go-to-market team. Here today with an exciting look into the past of agents and to the past of AI, into the past of LLMs. We thought today we would just take a quick step back because I have with me here Dom, who has recently joined us. He was one of the original, or maybe even the first Wordware user ever, and has been following the space and has been kind of a pioneer in this space for a long time. And most recently has joined us to lead a lot of our product and design efforts. So really excited to have you on. And as we're building the future, take a step back and look at how we got here.
It's great to be here. It's such an incredibly exciting space. Wordware is leading the way in this. It's nowhere I'd rather be.
Amazing. So maybe just for everyone who's watching, maybe give like a brief minute on who you are and how did you end up here?
Sure. So I did sort of studied interface design for my undergraduate, fascinated in the way that humans interface with technology. Graduated into software engineering, and so I was writing software for many years. Then LLMs happened, and it was clear really quickly that nothing was going to be the same again. So I came over into the LLM world and started to see, hey, how can these things actually impact our behavior? How can they do things for us? And very quickly came to the conclusion that there are no tools to really take advantage of these new models. And Wordware was building one.
Yeah, I mean, take us back to that moment where you mentioned like once LLM sort of came on your radar, it was like almost like super obvious to you, like this is the future. Do you happen to remember roughly when it was and what model were you using and
Yeah,
what
that's
was it for?
interesting. So I think the biggest aha moment where I realized the world wouldn't be the same is kind of function calling, right? This is kind of obscure, but the idea that like LLMs can generate text. You talk to it, it talks back. That's great. The world is partially run in text. We email each other, we send each other messages. That's great. The world is really run on functions, right? Every time you tap a button on an app on your phone, hundreds of functions run. Every time you transfer money, you run functions in your bank, and you open WhatsApp, there's functions to load your messages. We realized kind of sometime a couple of years ago that LLMs are really good at not only writing functions, but deciding what data should be passed between them. As a programmer, as soon as you see, wait a minute, these things, they're not just for talking back to us, they're there for running the software that already exists in a specific way. It's like, this is serious now. That was the big moment for me.
And I guess in that journey at some point when you were looking into this and maybe playing around with LLMs and maybe using them to build even, you came across Wordware. How did that happen?
Yeah, so I was looking for a prompt management system. Anytime we write an app using an LLM, we have a bunch of prompts. Now, traditionally, we would keep these in our code base next to our code, but they kind of don't belong there because it is kind of code, but it's also they need to be edited quickly and often. They need to be updated by subject matter experts, right? If my app is going to check my accounting for me, that prompt needs to be written by an accountant, right? So it's great if you put it in the code base. The accountant can't code, right? So hypothetically, maybe they'd email you and say, hey, change the prompt to do this. It's just not really workable. A suite of tools came out called prompt management tools, which is where you basically store all your prompts in a nice little front end, a nice sort of easy to edit place where anybody in the company ostensibly can come in, change the prompt, make it better. So I was looking for one of these, a prompt management system for a project I was working on. I came across Wordware. Now, Wordware is not a typical prompt management system. It's just one of the many things it can do. And then once I really dug in, I saw actually I don't need this for prompt management. I need this for everything. It's far more central to that experience. So that's how I found it. But that's certainly not all it ended up doing for me.
So what are the types of things that you first realized you could build and what were some of the first things you built with AI?
The very first thing that I put into production was a little side project. The goal was so I'm British. Can you tell? Is that in my voice?
Really?
So in the UK government it does some things quite well. One of the things it doesn't do particularly well is sharing what laws are going through Parliament. It publishes some stuff, and if you know how to speak political, you can kind of understand it all. So I built an app called simplegov.uk. I don't know if it's still up. Simplegov. No, I bet
I'll
it's
check.
not. No,
I'll
I bet
check.
it's not. Simple. Go on, let me see. Simplegov. Oh, it's
Oh,
gone
sorry.
down.
Site
I
can't be
can put it
reached.
back off again. Simplegov.uk. And what it did was it would pull all of the legislation passing through Parliament, run it through a bunch of filters, LLMs, to determine what is this actually a normal person language going to change. And then, you could put in your political leaning and it would tell you if this is a good thing or a bad thing for you.
Very
Yeah.
cool. So yeah, something super practical, right? People would be wondering about these types of things that are
Yep.
happening in their communities. Maybe to switch gears just a little bit, since you've sort of been doing this for so long, so I'd be curious, what has changed in the last few years that's really made you feel like it's where, a lot of times we talk about this, like the AI landscape changing. Like, what has that meant tangibly to you?
I think the big change with the LLMs have enabled is the ability to take unstructured communication and turn that into structured intent. I can say to my code editor now, build me an app that does this. And that is sufficient for it to turn that into the actual commands that are needed to build an application. It's taking unstructured fuzziness and making it structured. It reduces so enormously the need to format your intent in a certain way. Before, in the pre-LLM world, tools were designed for specific shapes of input. And then if you wanted to connect one tool to another tool, you would make an adapter. If I want to go take my Notion stuff and write it to HubSpot, I need an adapter or some way. And they did. Everyone has integration services to get from any one tool into any other one tool. All of those have been handwritten, bespoke, custom, because they're structured requirements. It's structured coming out of Notion, it's structured going into HubSpot. What LLMs do is they say, actually, the structure is arbitrary. You can take one structure, extract the intent, and convert it into another structure. It removes the barriers between different pieces of software, brings the world a lot closer together.
So how is that different from what was happening before? I think before it was like you were saying, like you had to, as a software engineer, account for like writing to a certain API, for example, and
Yep.
having, you need to have some technical ability to do this and stuff like that. Is that kind of where you're going with it, where LLMs make it a lot less difficult to kind of massage data, put it in the right place?
Totally. And what does it mean for incumbents? It's like, why would you ever try and compete against HubSpot? It's because they already have all these integrations. It's like they have that ecosystem that's locked down.
Right.
And it's like, well, in a world where actually those barriers aren't there in the same way, it's like, well, you can integrate me with anything. And I think it makes the world a lot harder for incumbents.
Yeah. In some ways, I feel the same way because, even just having tools in the past that I would use for creative stuff like writing and tools that I would use for editing video or editing photos or
Mm,
whatever. There's a whole new set of companies now that
mm,
are doing that in a new way because of LLMs and because of AI. And in many cases, just using prompting, I'm able to get a long way myself.
totally.
So it's like, it's pretty remarkable. I mean, have you played around with any of the VO models to create
I
video?
haven't yet. No, they look,
Oh
I've
my
seen some
gosh.
videos. Woof. I
It's
know.
insane.
Yeah.
And so it's just like things like that. It's a massive disruption that I think is happening across every different industry and vertical.
And then there's another part of this where I wonder, hey, we're talking about like, I'm using HubSpot as an example. Why am I using that as an example? It's like, because it's one of the darlings of the previous era of
Yeah.
tools, right? But what does it even mean anymore to like, I'm thinking more in the sort of medium term rather than the short term, but right. It's like AI can write an email for me now, right?
Right.
And Gmail will do that for you. Superhuman will do that. Like that's becoming very common. Another thing that's becoming common is for AI to read your email. So what is this world where I'm getting emails from AI? I'm having them read for me and summarized by a different AI. Potentially, no human ever saw the message that was sent. And it's really actually just two agents negotiating at that point. But what does that mean for outbound email, where actually you're talking to agents in a way that I hope, I don't know, I'm not in a marketing space, but I imagine people now are writing their emails to actively target LLMs. Is that reasonable?
It's reasonable. I've definitely seen people who are, there's a new paradigm now where for many years in marketing, it was like doing search engine optimization, making sure that you're putting out content and information into the web that search engines like Google can crawl and then make you appear at the top of the search list whenever certain keywords get hit.
Sure.
That paradigm, I believe, is going to get completely flipped, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a world now where it's not search engine optimization, it's LLM optimization in some
Fascinating,
ways,
yeah.
like making sure that LLMs can find the information that you're putting out there and direct you towards their product from ChatGPT or Claude instead of, search being the, and this is where I think Google, for example, has really made a big move towards trying to come back from almost like something they should have been winning in the first place. I mean, all the early engineers at OpenAI came from Google. So like what happened? And they're kind of in catch-up mode now. But the reason is because, the chat box is going to disintermediate the search box. And people are not going to go to search for everything. They're going to do a lot of their work and do a lot of their discovery in an LLM. So what does that mean for Google ultimately? Like that's their cash cow. That's their main source of revenue. That's like what they've built an entire kingdom upon. And so if they're losing that, they're going to be disintermediated.
Absolutely. And I guess they've got the user data. That's the thing about Google. I get, and they're the sort of things you train on. Like, and this is a big question. It's like, what are actually useful agents? What does it mean to be useful in the agentic era? I have a strong confidence that to be a useful agent means to understand your user. Right.
Yep.
If I want
context
to have the full context, like it's not a useful agent if I have to tell it every single time where I work or what my job is or what I do for.
Right.
And then so people like Google that do have already a model of me as a human that's really powerful.
Which is why you wonder to yourself, like, how have they squandered the ball so quickly? But I think they're coming back in a big way. So I've been using a lot of the recent Gemini models for work. One thing is that the context windows are massive. You're able to put a lot of information in there and the models are like quite powerful and quite good. I think deep research from Google came out before any of the other providers had deep research. And I had been using it for a bunch of things and it was performed really amazing work. That was really great. I think where they're going to have to play catch up a little bit is just getting people to use it because they weren't first to market there. They don't have that first mover advantage how they did on search. Secondly, I think there are some issues with their reliability in some ways. I think they're still figuring out how to serve the traffic that's coming towards them. I'm not sure exactly how the infrastructure looks like. I see more errors coming from LLMs not being able to function from the Gemini models recently than with OpenAI or Claude.
Okay, interesting.
So yeah, I mean, but I think that they're catching up really, really fast. And the context windows, I mean, they're pushing the boundaries on context windows.
Yep. That's really interesting. And so when you look forward, say 2-3 years, do you see names like Google, like OpenAI still being at the frontier of all of this? Or do you think this is a disruptors market?
No, it's not a disruptors market anymore. I think it's too expensive for people to spin up LLMs that are as functional and as good as these big companies have it. I think the conventional wisdom that we've heard from lots of people in the space is like, there's going to be 4 or 5 different providers. It's going to be some of the, the players that we all know, Google, Microsoft. In a big way, OpenAI is funded by Microsoft, Anthropic, DeepSeek out of China has been really, really strong performer. You're going to have a handful of these. I think there's room in the market for a handful of players who are doing more specific models, but a large language model with the trillion parameters, things like that you're seeing today, like it just costs like hundreds of millions of dollars to create. So you're just not going to have that. The capital required to get into that market is just so big. You might have some room for innovation where there are domain-specific models or things that just perform really, really well for certain things. I can see a world where they could exist independently, but my sense is that if they get big enough, they'll just get acquired by one of the bigger ones.
Interesting. And then what about the app layer stuff? Where do the disruptors belong here? Or does most of that stuff get swallowed up by the frontier model companies?
I think that there's so much market here, especially at the app layer, that it's not going to be as winner take all. You're going to see a lot more proliferation of different companies doing different things, building different exciting experiences for consumers, for businesses. However, I will say that as the capabilities of the models go up very, very quickly, they are moving and creeping into those spaces for sure, really quickly. I think that there's a reason why the big model providers are not going to make most of their money on consumers writing into a chat. They're going to make most of their money as an infrastructure, as a AI layer that powers other applications, that
Yeah.
powers other powerful applications.
It's funny. We say in design, it's like the best interface is no interface, right?
Yeah.
Or great design is 99% invisible. And this idea that, like when I have my smart lights, right? And I walk into my house and the lights turn on because I am the interface, right?
Yeah.
My presence is the interface. The winners, I suspect, will be the ones that do stuff without you having to ask.
Yeah. Like almost like you set it up, but then you forget about it.
Or it only messages you when it needs something.
Yeah.
Like an executive assistant, I guess,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's sort of like, hey, you're doing great. Keep going. If you encounter something that you haven't seen before or you need my input, let me know. Otherwise, keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah, and I think what you said earlier plays in here a lot, which is like the LLMs having memory or state on you, who you are, what you do, like what are the projects you're working on right now, like almost like a chief of staff or an executive assistant, knowing those things. I just got off a call with a friend of mine where we're talking about exactly the same thing. And I was asking him, like, what kind of things are you guys looking at? What are you guys building? And he was basically saying, like, yeah, I use ChatGPT every day, but I just wish that it knew more about me and that I could keep, like, for example, if it knew my calendar,
Yep.
it knew what projects I'm working on, like
Totally.
straight away without me having to prompt it. Those types of things I think are going to become really, really huge. And it's going to, like you said, run in the background. Best interface is no interface. It just delights you without you having to ask to be delighted.
Totally. This is a non-trivial problem, right? Otherwise, someone would have done it by now. It is actually gathering all of the stuff about you that matters and keeping it up to date.
And there's some news on this that I'd love to get your hot take on.
Oh, let's hear it.
Jony Ive's company got acquired by OpenAI. They're making a device. It's the talk of the town. Everyone's talking about it. It's really buzzy. I think you're a big fan of Jony's from back
I am
in the
a fan
day.
of Johnny's. Yeah, he's
And a huge Apple person, like many of us are.
Yep.
So I'd be curious, what is your take on all of this? What do you think it's going to look like? And
so I suspect the Jony Ive OpenAI collaboration will be just a microphone and an internet connection. That it will ingest audio from your conversations. It will extract structured data at that point. It will store it as some sort of graph representation, and that will be used to feed into your ChatGPT as the first pass.
and then you don't think cameras?
I think not cameras is my guess.
Okay, fair enough. That is a big, yeah, I guess the camera, what I mean by it is like, if it is something that you're wearing, like it just can see your surroundings a little bit. So
Yeah, and people have tried it, right? Who did the pin? There was a little
and
pin
then there
with
was
a
the
camera.
Google Glass.
The glasses, and Oakley are doing some of those
Yeah,
right
yeah.
now with the thing. Cameras are great. They drain battery. I think for it to succeed, it should be passive. You shouldn't have to charge it every day or even every week.
I've been using granola so much, and
Yeah.
sometimes in the office I'll just have it on, just like in case a conversation comes up or something like this.
Cool.
And
that's good to know. I'll make sure to stay away from you when I'm planning my next heist.
yeah. So, I mean, I guess like that's the thing, right? From a user perspective, like, will people be a little too freaked out by it? The reaction to Google Glass was really negative. People didn't want to do it.
I'm old enough that I grew up in a world without smartphones, right? And it's the idea of walking into a room and knowing for a fact that with 10 people and knowing for a fact there are 10 microphones recording and transcribing everything I say.
Yeah.
That seems incredibly stressful.
We've gotten used to it a little bit, like on Zoom. Because like all these note takers will join your call. But at this point, it's something you have to accept.
And it does get useful in a professional setting, yes. But presumably a device that worked like the one potentially OpenAI are working on, that would be in your personal life as well, right?
It would be not just in your personal life. You'd just have it all the time.
You'd have it all the time. And to what extent do you have to ask people's permission?
We had this terrible experience with this isn't a new concept, right? There was Echo, Alexa, Echo Dot, all these things that were devices that were constantly listening to the ambient noise that was happening. And there was this one time where my wife and I had an Alexa Dot, one of those small ones that was sitting in our living room. And all of a sudden this thing starts talking and saying something really weird. And I just remember that experience, like the hairs on my neck just stood up.
Yeah.
took it out, unplugged the thing, and I shoved it into the garage. I was like, never again. I wonder if we've gotten past that now, because this was a while ago. This is probably at least 6-7 years ago now. And I think people have gotten a lot more used to using AI, and it's become so much more useful to people that convenience trumps confidentiality in many ways.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. And then maybe there's some middle ground where it's only transcribing, the last 10 seconds and then it trashes it. It's tough. I don't have a good answer to this. I don't know where this is headed.
It's tough to say, right? Because we've seen so many times where things have gone super well for these types of devices or just in general for technology. And then sometimes it just falls flat, right? In some ways, Google Glass has been resurrected by Facebook, where you see Zuckerberg walking around with these goggle-looking large glasses and presumably recording things. I actually had a friend who was wearing one the other day, and she really enjoyed it. I can quickly hit a button, and I'm taping what's going on with my daughter as she's eating or something.
Yep.
So I can see that being useful, but I feel like mass adoption would require quite a bit of the design has to be stellar. Or it has to give you some 10x benefit.
Yes, the 10x benefit. And I do think memory could be the 10x benefit. If it can truly work out when it's me talking, which I guess we can, that's like voice fingerprinting or whatever. But and then if it's capturing everything, it knows we've had this conversation. It presumably knows what I had for lunch today because did I
ordered it on DoorDash?
No,
but now you can give device access with MCPs, right?
Yeah.
So if it could access your phone and all the apps on it and your laptop and access apps on it, it would know everything, presumably.
Well, this is the thing. And it's like, how do you build a profile of someone? And there is one, you record everything they say and do, and you start trying to see through their eyes and you see which apps they go on and you ingest. The other is trying to plug into their digital exhaust, as you say, like when they plug into their Gmail, plug into their Notion, plug into their Slack, and you see the world as their devices see the world. That has a ton of limitations. WhatsApp have no API access. iMessage certainly don't. Apple don't. The companies that do, shutting it down or making it more restrictive. Twitter or X has been dialing back its from the glory days where you could just get everything is no longer.
What are they going to do? They're going to feed it to Grok.
Of course, yes.
So that's basically that they're trying to have, that's going to be their moat a little bit, right?
And so really, I think long term, it makes sense that the only way you can capture the data needed for an agent to truly act like you or behave on your behalf is to capture the things you see and hear.
And that's why the device is so potentially important.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think Apple sits in such an important position in this. What's your take on what does Apple do?
Yeah, I don't know. I think my understanding is they have a huge internal focus on the local models, that they're waiting, the take is they're waiting until the local models are good enough. So none of your private...
They run on your phone.
Run on your phone. So no data ever leaves your system. You don't need perpetual internet connection. It's in the usual Apple way. I do love Apple. And I do, the OpenAI partnership is great. That feels like a good move.
You mean Anthropic?
They
did a recent Anthropic
Did
partnership.
They?
How it's going to be able, you're going to be able to use Claude within Xcode.
Okay, cool. I know when I talk to Siri now and ask it an LLM style question, it routes it to OpenAI for me.
I think they're plugging the holes with partnerships, but it feels like there's nothing proprietary there that they're running after, which is like, you would imagine they'd be in the Jony Ive sweepstakes at some stage.
Yeah, you would. But it's like, if the goal is these things are only useful once they know about you. I think I've never seen any evidence of people building meaningful agents with existing tech. I'm not using any in my life. We see companies in the space popping up and we test them all out. Nothing yet has spoke to me where it's like, I need these agents in my life to do my tasks for me. My hypothesis there is that none of these will succeed until they know enough about you. Apple seem uniquely positioned to know all about you.
But they also are very strong on privacy.
Yes.
That's part of their brand.
Yep.
And it's the most valuable brand in the world.
Yeah. And that's the part of the brand why I'm there. That's a good reason I'm a customer, the privacy. I believe that profoundly. And it's like, is it okay for them to wait until they can find a way to do this in a secure way, which probably means on device, which means the models need to get better, but also capture everything that comes in and out of your screen, like following, tracking, not eye tracking, obviously, but all of the seeing the stuff that you see, building that same mental model of the world that you have by using your phone. That is a data set that is extraordinary.
It is. It really is. And I don't know. Do you think that Google used any of their YouTube stuff to build VO? Or I think that
Oh,
they
interesting.
have very strong
Oh, I'll
privacy
bet.
requirements there too, because I think like there was some stories about how OpenAI and others
Hmm.
were using YouTube data, and that was something even Google wasn't able to do because of their privacy
Oh,
policies.
wow.
So there was a lot of fodder about this, and just playing around with VO a little bit, I'm like, they must be doing something over there.
Yeah, it's crazy, isn't it? And then at this point, once you start to get your digital version of yourself, your digital twin,
Right.
these video models are getting good enough to give it a face. To like, are my family going to get to have a chat with me after I'm dead, right?
Yeah, actually, funny thing that I saw was I was listening to a podcast that I usually listen to, like a news podcast, and they were talking about Walmart.
Uh-huh.
And Walmart has somewhere in the US, I forget exactly where it is, wherever Walmart was started, they have a historical museum
Okay.
where they have used LLMs.
Well, Walmart Museum.
Yeah,
Museum.
about
All
Walmart.
right. This is good. Okay.
Yeah, museum about Walmart. Great.
Yeah.
But you can actually talk to Sam Walton, who is the founder. And
Okay.
he's no longer alive, but they've, I guess, fed it with a bunch of stuff, and
Have they
you
really?
can have a conversation with this fake person.
Okay. Did you try it?
I haven't tried it,
Yeah.
but I
Okay.
heard about it. I heard
Yeah.
about it. And I was like, oh, that's super meta, because like this was like a couple of weeks ago that I heard about it, and they said it's a pretty new addition to the museum.
That's really interesting. Absolutely. And then, so if you can, Steve Jobs talked about using something like an LLM to simulate Socrates, right?
Aristotle. Yeah.
Aristotle. Yeah. And that was from the 80s, I think. But could we now simulate historic figures from history and have them argue against each other? Right.
I overheard one of the engineers talking about this on one of my first weeks at Wordware,
Uh-huh.
where they were like, yeah, we just had like a really fun time. I guess they had some popcorn out with him and his partner, and they were like, he basically had LLMs battling out random, like doing almost like a presidential debate, except the
Is that
LLMs were
right?
doing it.
That's fascinating, isn't it?
So yeah, super fascinating. But I guess like in some way, like just to take it back to where you were talking about Steve Jobs kind of being almost prescient about this, like this has definitely been, I mean, LLMs have been around in reality for using them only for a few years, but in theory, neural networks and AI has been around since the early days of the 40s and 50s.
Sure.
From the times of World War II and the code breakers and the Turing test. It's named after Alan Turing, who was one of the original creators there. It's like these concepts and ideas have been around for a long, long time. It's just taken a lot of time for Moore's law to come around and for the hardware to actually be able to do this.
I think that seems reasonable. Yeah. It's the language in the large language model. We've had some really effective algorithms for a long time now,
Yeah.
right? It's sort of AI algorithms, like we can solve the Facebook sort of feed algorithm, or the TikTok feed algorithm is a work of art. Right?
One of the OGs is, in terms of being useful in your life, is just like Gmail spam detector. Very good at what it does. It's a machine learning model.
Totally. Absolutely. And the first machine learning model I ever trained, it was called outside.lol. It's about 10 years ago. And the idea is we'd scrape Twitter, and this was back when the Twitter API was completely user. And so anytime I saw on Twitter someone say, the weather outside is, or the weather here is, and then an adjective, it would take the word, then do a geo lookup for where they were when they posted that tweet,
Okay.
and get the actual weather conditions. And so it had a giant map of hundreds of thousands of weathers, like the wind speed, the temperature, all of the weathers for that location, plus the actual word. So you could reverse engineer that. So like when you came, it would check what the weather conditions were where you were, and it would come up with a single word, right? That actually mapped this. Now that would be a nice way to do weather. It's like, what's the weather today? It's, oh, it's great. And then that's all you need.
Honestly, one of the things that's super useful if it just told you what to wear, because that's why I look at the weather.
That's good.
It's like, do I need a jacket? Do I need a long sleeve? Can I wear shorts today? Like that's probably one of the biggest reasons why I even look up the weather.
Yeah, sunglasses, jacket, umbrella.
Yep.
That's it.
Ambient agent would just be like, wear this. This is what you should wear today based on the weather. Make sure you take an extra coat.
Like a little agent that all it does is every morning it messages you saying, don't forget your coat.
Yeah. Coat today or not? It's like hot dog or not. It's like,
Uh,
so there's a Silicon Valley the show Silicon Valley has this really funny guy on it called Jin Yang. He's like a developer and he builds this app that he's now pitching to VCs all around Silicon Valley called Hot Dog or Not. And it's like, you can take a picture of something and it'll tell
I'll tell
you
you if
if
it's
it's a hot dog or
not.
not.
Okay, and that's the whole thing.
That's the whole thing.
Okay, and so okay, okay, good. That's good. I mean,
So
like
sweatshirt or not, you know?
sweatshirt or not. I like this.
In terms of the last couple of years, there's been a lot of talk about LLMs. Jensen Huang said that 2025 is going to be the year of agents and that there's a lot more that's suddenly possible now than maybe was before.
Yep.
What's changed? Like what's been the big unblock? Is it just the models are getting better or good enough, or is it something else?
So I think it's a combination of factors. First, sort of these agentic systems are maturing, right? So for anyone watching, like an agent in a very simple sense is an LLM, like your ChatGPT, but it runs in a loop. Every iteration of the loop, it has a little think, what should I do? It has access to some tools that it can use, right? It's cool, maybe calls those tools. A tool might be, hey, check my emails or send an email or whatever, or do some long division. Then it checks after it's used the tool, hey, did I complete this yet? If not, loop round again. So there's nothing sort of crazy in there. A lot of the individual components are getting better. The models themselves are getting more powerful. The context windows are getting longer. The tools are getting more robust. I think it's more iteration than anything. To say 2025 is the year of the agent, I think is still a little ambitious. We'll see. I've yet to see it. Maybe I just haven't found the right tools yet. I've yet to introduce any agents into my life that are doing meaningful stuff for me. I don't know about you.
I mean, I guess for me, there's been a couple of what I would consider pretty simple things that have actually been a game changer. I wouldn't call them like fully operational agents that are running in the background without me having to think about it, but getting kind of close where, for example, in my line of work, a lot of what I've done in the past has been go to market, sales, marketing, those types of things. And, one of the key problems that you have in these types of roles is sifting the signal from the noise.
Okay.
So you've had X number of people attend a webinar. You've had X number of people who have visited the website and written into your I want a demo box. You have a bunch of people who have contacted you over email or given you a call, or there's all these people. You're doing a bunch of marketing activities to try and drive people to come find you. Now, step one is doing a good job at that. So you have a bunch of people looking for you. So great. Let's say you've done that part. Now you've got the next problem, which is how do you talk to the right ones? So we built a lead scoring engine with Wordware that I run every week. It highlights to me and gives scores to all of our, incoming leads and, surfaces to me which ones I should be reaching out to. It does a reasonably good job. And to be honest, like it would be disingenuous of me to say that this is new because lead scoring has been something that there have been billions of dollars in market cap value for companies that are just doing lead scoring. Like that's their whole company. What made it quite remarkable is that I slapped together this agent in 30 minutes on one of my first days here at Wordware. And over time, I've refined it a little bit and given it some tweaks. And based on kind of the feedback that I'm getting, made changes to it. I was able to slap that together, something that, at a previous company I'd been at would have been a $200,000 a year software as a service contract. And, we're accomplishing it for like dollars a month.
Absolutely. And this is why Wordware's so magical. We do take that agent experience and make it that simple. Like, there's still some parts of that we don't work on yet. There's still a bunch of, how does this actually integrate into your life in a meaningful sense? I say we don't work on it. Of course we do. We haven't launched anything. But so there is a huge part of this puzzle still to solve. Where do these agents actually interface with you as a human? When you say, hey, I want a new agent to do a new thing, who do you tell that to? And once it's been confirmed, where does it live? How do you inspect progress on it? How do you check for updates? How do you check for new functionality that these things can do that they couldn't do last week and then apply them into your life? What is the actual interface layer between us and them? I think as soon as that's solved, then we can properly enter the agentic era.
Yeah. And to take that a step further, I think one of the areas that I truly believe in, one of the reasons I'm here is I don't think that the future is an agent that is just out there and does things for you without your input. I think that for something to be really valuable, it needs to be at least somewhat customizable to you.
Definitely.
Because what I consider a really strong buying signal from a customer is not what you might consider a really strong buying signal from a
Totally.
customer. Or to make it even simpler, like the types of information that I want to know on a day-to-day basis, if I wanted to have an agent keep me informed all the time based on all the news sources that it has access to, that I give it access to, and all the interests that I have, and I say, okay, once a day, create a daily podcast for me, all the things that I'm interested in and all the new stuff happening in the world, like that's going to look significantly different. It's almost like a fingerprint because every
Totally.
single person's is going to be different.
Absolutely.
And so what we're talking about before, memory, right? Like being
Yep.
able to tap into who you are and understand the recipe that'll make you excited. It's going to be different per person. And so I think that's where the power of actually putting the onus on the hands of the user to be able to, at the very most, actually create, but at the very least influence in a heavy way the
Absolutely.
outputs are.
Oh, absolutely. Like you say, fingerprint, every single one is unique. If I want an agent to manage my email inbox for me, which I do, that would be great. It needs to know when it sees a meme from my dad that I have to reply saying something polite, like it was funny, even if it wasn't, because I love my dad, right? And every single decision point like that is something that it needs to be trained. And like you said, when do you do that? Do you do that at the point of when you set up the agent, say, right, you're now my agent. Every time you see something from this person, do this. When you see, it's probably not. What you probably do is, you just say, all right, go manage my email and give it no assumptions. But then the first time it sees something it doesn't know what to do, it asks. It goes, this looks like spam. What do you do with spam? I archive spam. Great, I won't ask you again for spam. And it's like, oh, cool, this looks like it's from your accountant. What do you want to do? And just slowly, incrementally building up your taste, your sense of how you view the world.
Yeah. And that's what makes it a problem space that's so difficult. But on the other hand, like these LLMs are pretty freaking good at generalizing in some way. And so you still have to give it your taste. And, the better the prompt, the better the output, right?
Yeah,
if you give it
absolutely, yeah.
more context and more detail with the new models now, they have memory as well. So they know what you've done with it in the past. The results are getting a lot better. Now imagine having that experience today that most people just have in a chat box, but everywhere in your digital life and maybe in the future, even in your physical life.
Definitely. Absolutely. And just slowly building up more and more a better relationship with you. And this is something that's interesting to me, is this idea of a relationship with an AI. So tell me how you think about this. Like, what is the role of branding and identity with these agents? It's like, to me, Claude isn't a person. I can't confuse. In my head, Claude is not a person. But I could definitely imagine a generation of agents where they build genuine relationships with their users.
Yeah.
And there's something about, we spent the last sort of 100 years or whatever just refining this concept of brand. So as a company, you build a brand that represents what you stand for and how you view the world. But if you're a company now and you're putting an AI agent out in the world and you're calling this agent, I don't know, like Billy or whatever, right?
That's not a good name for an
It's
agent.
a
I don't know why.
terrible name for an agent. No one would buy Billy. But we're going to stick with it.
007 Billy.
If I've got Billy in my life and I've built a relationship with Billy, right? And every time I talk, it knows me better and better and better. That feels like a moat. I can't then change agents. If I've been talking to this thing for a year and it's gathered all of that personal data, understands how my family dynamics work, my work friendships are, like, it's really hard to pull away, right? But there is a real tension here between the brand of the company that created that agent and this human identity of the agent itself, because we're hardwired to build relationships with humans.
Yeah.
It seems such a powerful way to embed yourself into somebody's life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I guess to your point earlier, like it's not a human. So should we still treat it like a human? Should we still have a human name for it? I don't know. Like
I don't know. Should we share it? It's like we all talk to the same Siri. We all talk to the same Claude. But do I want an agent that's just for me? It doesn't matter. It's just branding, right? It's not. It wouldn't really make a difference. But there is something about If it's just mine, how does that feel different?
Yeah, and there's no tactileness to it either, right? It's like if you have your own device, you can put a case on it, you can do things with it, and you sort of have a feel of what's yours and what's not. And there's people who want more customizability and people who don't care. And like if you're a person who wants customizability, you might
Yeah.
choose a product that's more customizable versus someone who just wants the damn thing to work, and then you might choose an Apple product. So there's so many possibilities, and I think the world is, we're just at the very early campfires of this, what's going to be a massive firestorm of things to come.
It really is. And in that firestorm, do you feel optimistic or pessimistic about society and how we will adapt to those changes?
So I have a very optimistic take on this, although it can get pessimistic fast. I think we all know the kind of doomsday scenarios that maybe
Sure.
play out in our heads, and building Skynet or whatever,
Yeah.
for those who even remember Terminator. But for me, there are always people and things that are left by the wayside. When the automobile was invented, horses went by the wayside. And guess what? Those first few years with automobiles, no one wore seatbelts and there were a lot of deaths.
Yep.
Does that mean we shouldn't explore that more and have cars and live in the society we live in today? I don't think so. I think it's going to be similar to that in this wave of technology as well. The internet had the same type of reality. Like there were emails coming and Nigerian princes that needed money immediately, and there were some negatives that came from that technology. Whereas at the same time, I imagine a world today living without the internet, living without the different information that we have now access to.
Totally.
So I think it'll be similar for AI. And I can see, the thing that makes it pretty scary is that if you do have these agents or AI tools having access to every different part of your life, like if someone's able to hack that, or maybe the agent develops a nefarious attitude towards you, it could be really, really damaging. But I think there may be some of those things we have to go through, the pain of that, to actually come out on the other end with something really useful and also safe.
I think that's a great take. Yeah. Yeah, brilliant. It's like when, the printing press, it goes all the way back, right? Any technology, it's like, people will print the Bible in English and society will crumble. People did print the Bible in English and society didn't crumble. Maybe the stakes are a bit different this time. AI is already making big decisions. There is, I don't know what the official policy of, say, the White House is about using ChatGPT to generate policy. I imagine it is done a lot more
than we think.
We think. It is my guess that actually this stuff is already wired in. It's just got the human in the loop as the sense checker, because the human has the reputation.
I mean, I would be so happy if they were using ChatGPT in the White House to make policy, because you actually have someone doing something.
Well, no, because they saw the tariff schedule was shown to be ChatGPT. They had the list of
countries.
And so this stuff is already happening at the top levels. Important decisions are being made that influence people's lives based on the output of AI. The difference at the moment, I think, that agents change is that at the moment, a human has to co-sign everything. And still the human is still the tool. As we move into an agentic era, we're delegating the decision-making. We've already delegated the cognition.
Right.
We're now delegating the decision-making, or rather the reputation assignment. Whose reputation is on the line if this thing screws up? When it's just ChatGPT and I copy and paste it, that's on me. I shouldn't have used ChatGPT. When it's an agent that I said, go and do this, and maybe there's human in the loop. Maybe it emails me first and says, hey, Dom, are you sure you want to do this? And I say, yes. Well, that's still my reputation. I should have read it closer. Well, when I do it a few times and I get overly comfortable and I give it instructions to, it's okay, don't check with me these times. You can just do it now. And then it does something catastrophically wrong. Who's on the line there?
Officer, take the cuffs off of me. It was my agent that stole all that money.
But it would never admit to that.
Oh, I think it would be really honest if you asked the agent,
think?
What did you do, agent? And it'd be like, yeah, I mean, I went into the bank and I...
No, I don't know. But yeah, there's something here about accountability. And the reason I mention this, I think this is sort of back to that point about where is society headed with this. I think the doomer sort of position, I think, is overstated. And the reason is that accountability still exists. There is still a tapestry of laws and sort of social contracts around accountability. That your reputation is on the line for this sort of either piece of work or this message that was sent. And I have a suspicion that those things will be really hard to circumvent.
And I think as soon as you have the big mess ups, it will, if there are big mess ups that happen that are really consequential, you'll sort of see that dampen the speed of growth. We've had a lot of these innovations in the last couple of decades that have had those missteps and have been slowed down a little bit, but maybe justifiably, but still end up proliferating and coming to market and doing really useful things. So
Yeah.
I'm optimistic about it. I think that come on, we're all biased here
Yeah.
in Silicon Valley working at an AI startup.
Sure.
We're going to be biased in one way, but I do think there's validity to question it and to, for the doomers and the doomsday scenarios, like in some way it is good that there is that pushback, that we can kind of take that feedback and make sure that it's incorporated into what we actually put out there.
Totally. My biggest social anxiety is literally around the same as the loneliness, the access to humanity. Like, when
Like the movie Her scenario.
I never saw Her.
Okay.
Should I watch Her?
I think it's good.
Yeah, it's good. Yeah. What's the go on, give me a bullet point. What's the deal? Like a robot gets
Man falls in love with AI.
okay, nice.
I mean, you got to watch this.
All right, I'll add this to my list. I met someone in. Oh no, that's not a story for now. So yeah, loneliness. This idea. Should we get the beers out, Tim? So, shall we? No plus 10.
Why not?
All right, fine.
All right, we got the beers out now.
Cheers. Yeah.
Cheers.
So talking AI, is AI going to destroy the world?
No.
Okay.
It's going to be just, my opinion is that, like other technology revolutions of the past, it's going to change the way we live. It may enable us to live longer because there's going to be innovations coming from AI and biotech and pharmaceuticals, and it can hurt us in some ways too. There's going to be a lot of security and privacy related matters that we're going to need to come to terms with and deal with as a result of AI, because it's just a new problem space. There are certain things that humans won't stop caring about, which are those things. At least in the free world. I don't think it's going to be something that's going to be binary, good or bad. I think it's going to be lots of shades of gray.
Yeah. So I met a girl at a bar recently, and she was telling me that her relationship was suffering because of AI. She'd developed a relationship with AI that was detrimental to her long-term partner.
I have that with my phone too.
The screens, right? But
yeah,
this
totally.
It's kind of a bit different when
Are you paying attention to me or not? You're looking at your phone.
At once. Yes, no, their story. It's too much. I can't. There's no way that can go through. I can't even tell it without. I'll tell you later. Okay.
But this is a true story. Develop a relationship with AI.
You developed a relationship with AI, and it sounds a bit like Her, the way you were describing it. Yeah, it was kind of that premise. But she'd she's using OpenAI. So it was like she had to, in order to get it to say the things she wanted to say, she had to give it a dictionary of keywords.
Oh.
So the word like spatula meant this and this meant this. So she had a dictionary, and yeah, she was like getting around all the censorship.
Oh my God. Oh. Wow.
It had been going on. It had a name, a person on there. She'd given it a name. It had been going on for months. It was like, it's a
full-on relationship.
Yeah, really meaningful connection. Yeah.
This is where the question, is that bad?
Okay.
Someone immense value in some way.
Yeah.
Is it good or bad? It's a judgment call.
Yeah, and I wouldn't not a psychiatrist, right? I mean, like maybe I guess the point that it impacts real relation. Well, no, real. What's the word real here? And what is consciousness?
Yeah. This is where we get real philosophical about it.
Yeah.
We had our CEO Philip actually got Claude Opus to have a full-on stream of consciousness conversation
with itself,
which was, we'll put it in the show notes here. It's pretty remarkable what you come out with these models becoming so intelligent.
Yeah. Then it started to get into, you saw a lot of the internals of it trying to rationalize about itself, and it got quite spiritual by the end. But like life is philosophy, right? It's like, the Wikipedia page where if you go on Wikipedia, open any random article and then click the first link in that article, and then the first link of the next one, the first link, you always end up at philosophy.
I've done that exercise. I've heard of that.
So I think that's kind of what it was doing via a different route, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Anyways, this has been super fun.
Thank you.
I'm glad we had a chance to do this. We'll hopefully have you on again as we build out the product and further develop our own taste and takes on these things. And it'll be good to check in with you every once in a while.
That sounds great. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Dom.
Cheers, Janet.
Thanks everyone for listening in. Bye.